Hello YouTube, my name is Isabella and welcome back to my channel Stubbornly Bookish. Today I'm going to be doing a rather big-ish book haul. I've been desperately trying to catch up on my book hauls because I've become notorious for filming a haul and then uploading it like 4 weeks later because I hate editing them. So after this video and one special unboxing I have coming sometime, I'm really going to try and stop my book buying for a while just because I'm actually kind of running out of space now. Just as a reminder, I buy a lot of my books used, and when I buy used books, I don't actually tend to know too much about them going into it. The books I bought new, I'll have better synopses, but without any further ado, let's just get into the haul. So the first few books I picked up, I actually got at my town's annual book sale. I look forward to it every year, and I didn't get as many books as I would have liked, but I did find a couple of good ones. The first book I grabbed was Stephen King's The Gunslinger. I've been intending to read this series for quite a few years now, and because of this, I kind of forget what it's about. From my understanding, it's a fantasy, it's a Western-inspired fantasy, and our main character is essentially the last of his kind. He's a gunslinger, and all I know is that he basically has to save the world. I know that this one isn't too well loved, but the series as a whole is spoken very well of, so I'm interested to see how I feel about this, and hopefully I can actually manage to read it soon. I still have never read a Stephen King, and I know I desperately need to fix that. I also grabbed The Perfect Stranger by Megan Miranda. This I actually bought for my mom because she's been enjoying some mysteries and thrillers lately, and I thought that maybe she'd enjoy it. I genuinely don't know anything about this. I also managed to grab a copy of Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood. I don't actually specifically remember what this one is about too much. From what I remember, I think our main character is believed to have murdered someone, but she can't recall / denies the whole thing happening, and it's got a little bit of a mystery, I think, attached to it. I've just been intending to read more Margaret Atwood for forever. The last one I got at my town sale was a little bit of an impulse buy, and it was World Without End by Ken Follett. He is the author of The Pillars of the Earth, which I've never read, but I actually remember watching the miniseries quite a few years ago and really enjoying it. Looking at this now, it actually looks as if it's a companion / sequel to Pillars of the Earth, which okay, so I guess I'm gonna have to get myself a copy of that one as well. I also found a copy of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. So many people have spoke so highly about this book, and I don't know too much about it other than the fact that it is a historical fantasy and that it's a chunker. This is a huge book. I also found The Magicians by Lev Grossman. This is the first book in an adult fantasy series that I've been intending to read for such a long time. From what I remember, it's about elite magical school that's very difficult to get into, and our main character obviously gets into this school. I believe all the characters are like miserable and awful to read from. I know that the first book isn't too well liked, but the trilogy as a whole is very well praised. I also grabbed The Demon King by Cinda Williams Chima. I have been intending to read this YA fantasy series for so long, but I can't tell you anything about it. I believe it's got a pretty standard premise in which like one character is royalty, the other one's impoverished, and their lives get like thrown together and the world gets turned upside down. But so many people have spoken very highly of this that I finally managed to get my hands on a copy. I also managed to get my hands on a copy of Mouse by Art Spiegelman. The author actually is recounting the events of his mother and father living and surviving through Nazi-occupied Europe? I'm not actually sure if it's France or Germany. It's a graphic novel in which the mice are Jewish people and cats are Nazis, and it's kind of like an allegory but based on a true story, which is super interesting, and a lot of people have really recommended this graphic novel, so I'm very excited to give this one a shot. I also picked up The Forgetting by Sharon Cameron. It takes place in this town where once a year or once every couple years the town forgets everything that happened. So it's actually left to the townsfolk to write down everything that's happened so they have reminders after their memories are wiped. I believe our main character is actually able to remember, which sets up a very interesting precedent because there are people who actually lie when writing down their histories because of things they're ashamed of or for a myriad of reasons. I haven't really seen anyone talk about this one recently, but the premise is really intriguing, so I figured, what the hell, pick it up. I think that this is going to be a pretty atmospheric read, so I might save it for like Halloween time, but pretty excited about this one. Excited about all of them. I also managed to get my hands on Night by Alias Grace. This is actually the author recounting his life being a teenager during the Second World War and him being Jewish, and just him recounting the horrors of what he's gone through. So many people have spoken very highly of this one, and I've been intending to read it for a very long time. However, this one I know I have to be in the correct headspace for because it's supposed to be harrowing and awful and just very disturbing. So we'll see when I get to this one, but I'm very glad to finally have my hands on this book. I found Persepolis. Oh, I found the complete Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. Sorry for the butchering. This is actually about our author growing up in Iran during the Islamic Revolution. It is a graphic memoir. This one has been spoken very highly of, and a lot of Own Voices reviewers have really loved this story, so I'm very excited to get to this one. And I really like the artwork in here. I also picked up Karen Slaughter's The Good Daughter. Frankly, I believe I was struggling to find a fifth book because in Value Village, you buy 4 books and you get the 5th one free. All I really remember / know about Karen Slaughter is that a lot of people really like her books, and I believe they're psychological thriller / horror. I also picked up the Fireman by Joe Hill. Can't remember if this is set in a post-apocalyptic type world or just our regular world, but I believe these fires just start happening and they're like these terrible blazes, and then there is this mysterious figure who's either saving people or stopping the fires. Frankly, my synopsis sucks, but I've heard a lot of good things about Joe Hill. I've had my eye on quite a few of his books, so I'm excited to read this one because it's quite a unique premise. It's a bit of a chunker, but a lot of people speak highly of Joe Hill, so I'm interested to see my thoughts. My last thrift store find was one of my most exciting ones of this haul, and it is actually The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. Ever since my English teacher in the 9th grade told me that this is basically the best revenge story ever told, I've been wanting to read this book. I love revenge and vengeance type stories, and I just have had my heart set on reading this book for like 8 years now. I have no idea when I'm going to get to this because to this day, this book is incredibly intimidating. It's over 1,200 pages and the text is so small, but I'm glad to have finally found a copy at the thrift store because I've been keeping my eye out and actually searching for this one. So now that's it for all the used books I bought in the past few months, and now on to my new books. This first book was quite of an impulse buy, and it was Blood Red Road by Moira Young. It was $3, and I've seen a couple of booktubers who have different tastes in books both really love this story. I believe it's set in like this kind of desert wasteland, and our main character's brother actually gets taken and goes missing, so she has to go track him down. I believe it's kind of a Mad Max-esque story. I still haven't seen Mad Max, but I've been intending to watch that movie. Heard that the trilogy as a whole isn't that great, but the first book can be read as a standalone and is very well reviewed. So this one I think is kind of a unique one. Again, with me being impulsive, and I picked up Usha and the End of Time by Roshni Chokshi. This is an Own Voices story about a 12-year-old Indian girl who kind of makes up stories as to what she's going to be doing during her summer break. All of her classmates are super rich and do these super great things, but she is stuck at the Museum of Ancient India. Her classmates kind of want to bust her on her lie and confront her on it, and so she ends up touching this like cursed magical lamp, and all these crazy things start happening. This book actually tackles Hindu mythology in like a Rick Riordan style type of story, and I'm so freaking excited to explore Hindu mythology. So I'm incredibly excited to read this and finally read one of Rashti's books, because I've been intending to read them for so very long. I also finally grabbed Dear Ijoele, or Feminist Manifesto in 15 Suggestions by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This little mini book was actually in response of Chimamanda's friends Ijoele asking Chimamanda how she should raise her daughter as a feminist. There are 15 little suggestions, and I cannot wait to finally read one of Chimamanda's books. I haven't read anything, which is awful, but this is a teeny little bite-sized one that I'm very excited to finally get to. I also grabbed The Marrow Fees by Sherry Dimeline. This is an Own Voices book for an Indigenous author. She's also Canadian, and it won a shitload of awards, if you can't already see. But this is a story based in a post-apocalyptic world where so many bad, terrible things are happening that basically all of humanity has lost their inability to dream. However, the only people who are able to still dream are Native Americans. It sets up an incredibly dangerous precedent for them, and basically it results in their death because people are so desperate to dream again. I'm excited to read this for numerous reasons. I haven't read, I think, barely any stories written by Native American people, which is awful on my part. It's been spoken so highly of, and it's such a short book that I definitely plan on getting to this one very, very soon. I also grabbed Flame in the Mist by Renee Ahdieh. I have already read this book. I read it when it came out last year, but I never actually bought myself a copy. So I decided to pick it up in this very nice new paperback edition. This book is set in a feudal Japan, and our main character is actually traveling to go get married to either the crown prince or the crown prince's brother when her caravan is actually attacked. Instead of trying to make her way back home, she decides that she is going to infiltrate this clan that attacked her caravan to understand why she was attempted to be murdered and to basically exact revenge. I really enjoyed this story. I very much enjoy Renee Ahdieh's writing style. I'm very much looking forward to finishing off the duology. I actually have a copy of it out already from my library, so I should be getting to that soon. I also got Catching Stars by Kayla Keenan. This book is actually published by Benjamin of Tomes's publishing company, and it came with my Owl Crate. I'm not too sure what this one is about. However, I've heard quite a good little bit of buzz about this one, and I'm excited to read some books that are actually like independently published outside of like the big 5 publishers. That book actually came with Sky in the Deep by Adrian Young. This is actually a Viking inspired story about a girl who I believe is a crazy great warrior. I believe there's a bunch of warring clans, but our main character actually has to try and unite them because of this legendary clan is like raiding everything, taking over everything, so they have to unite to defeat this evil, magical, mystical clan. I haven't heard too much about this one, so I'm gonna try and look into some reviews, but I'm interested to see a Viking inspired YA. It's, I think, pretty interesting and unique. In my Owl Crate, I also got Ace of Shades by Amanda Foody. This is set in a world that is basically a fictional Las Vegas that our main character swore to her mother that she'd never go to. However, her mother goes missing and she decides to follow her mother's trail, which leads her right into this fictional Las Vegas. It's supposed to be crazy corrupt, but I believe also like magic, and she meets this boy, of course. I'm not too sold on this book as a concept, which I know doesn't sound too great. This one I also plan to look up some more reviews for. I also pre-ordered Leah on the Offbeat by Becky Albertalli, and I've actually already read this one. Becky Albertalli is an auto-buy author for me. I've loved her other two previous books, and this one did fall a little flat for me, unfortunately. This one is actually about Leah, who is a fat, bisexual Slytherin girl who is known that she's bisexual since she was 11, but she hasn't told any of her friends yet. I enjoyed this one. It just didn't quite live up to the rest of Becky's books for me personally, but if you enjoyed Simon, I do suggest you pick this one up because there's some really, really cute scenes in here, and it is still worth a read. I also finally managed to get my hands on a copy of The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I've been hearing so much early praise for this one, and it is an adult fantasy based on, I believe, Chinese folklore that is on voices, I think. I'm pretty sure. I tried looking up the synopsis, but it was way too complicated for me. So many people have given this book 5 stars that I cannot wait to just like dig my teeth into it. I already know that there's a ton of trigger warnings for this, like crazy graphic stuff goes on. So I'm a little nervous for that, and I know I have to be in the correct headspace for this one, but I definitely am very much looking forward to it. With The Poppy War, I actually grabbed Wonder Woman Warbringer by Leigh Bardugo. This book I absolutely adored last year. I think I gave it 4.5 of 5 stars, and it like just missed my favorites of the year. It is Leigh Bardugo's take on a Wonder Woman origin story. She loves Wonder Woman. I think it really comes through on the page. It was a great story about sisterhood and friendship and Greek mythology, which was unexpected. I loved it. I know some people were hesitant because it was a DC commissioned book, but trust me, it's great. Leigh Bardugo's great. I love it. So good. I just found out that my recording actually got interrupted, which is incredibly annoying, but I think I actually hauled everything other than this last one, which is The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. I believe it's got a very basic thriller synopsis in which there's a bunch of girls at a summer camp. One girl, I believe, goes missing, ends up dead. 15 years later, main character goes to investigate. I would like to know any of these books that you have read and what you recommend for me to personally pick up. As always, thank you so much for watching my video. I've got to run. I will see you very soon. Bye.